Welcome to the InSync, now bringing you the latest news from around the world. In the South China Sea, where a third of global maritime trade flows, the stakes could not be higher. Every day, thousands of cargo ships navigate these waters, carrying goods that fuel economies across Asia, Europe, and beyond. The region is not just a vital artery for commerce, it's a lifeline for global supply chains, making stability here crucial for the world. Yet, a single disputed line on a nautical map can spark an international crisis, sending shockwaves through governments and markets alike. The boundaries here are not just lines, they represent national pride, economic opportunity, and strategic advantage. Tensions between China and the Philippines have erupted over Scarborough Shoal, a resource-rich reef teeming with fish and potential energy reserves, lying well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. This small outcrop has become a flashpoint, symbolizing the broader struggle for control in the region. China's increasingly assertive claims and maneuvers, ranging from Coast Guard patrols to the construction of artificial islands, have pushed the conflict to new heights. These actions directly challenge the Philippines, a key U.S. ally, over sovereignty and control of these vital waters, raising the specter of military confrontation. Under President Marcos Jr., Manila has taken a noticeably firmer stance, signaling a decisive break from previous administrations' more cautious approaches. The government now demonstrates a renewed resolve to defend its territory, increasing naval patrols and seeking stronger international support. The dispute has also drawn in other regional players like Malaysia and Vietnam, each with their own overlapping claims to parts of the South China Sea. As these nations assert their interests, the risk of a wider multi-nation conflict grows, complicating efforts at peaceful resolution and regional cooperation. For the Philippines, the fight is about upholding international law, particularly the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, and protecting its sovereign rights to resources and territory. For China, it's about reclaiming what it sees as its historic rights, territories and waters it claims have belonged to it for centuries, based on ancient maps and records. As both sides dig in, the South China Sea becomes a high-stakes arena where diplomacy is increasingly backed by Coast Guard ships and military presence. The risk of miscalculation, accidental clashes, or escalation grows ever more dangerous, threatening not just regional peace, but the stability of global trade and security. China has escalated its claims by releasing a new national map and drawing maritime baselines around Scarborough Shoal, far from its mainland. Naming dozens of features and dismissing a 2016 tribunal ruling, Beijing is using cartography and legal maneuvers to cement its presence and rewrite the rules. This strategy, part of a broader push to dominate the South China Sea, aims to overwhelm smaller nations and force them to accept China's new status quo. The move directly challenges the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, forcing neighbors to choose between confrontation and acquiescence. The Philippines and others must respond, or risk losing their sovereign rights in these contested waters. In response, the Philippines has passed two landmark maritime laws, the Maritime Zones Act and the Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act. These laws define the country's maritime boundaries and align domestic policy with international standards, strengthening Manila's legal position. By codifying its rights, the Philippines aims to challenge China's actions and defend its territory under the framework of UNCLOS. China has condemned these moves, warning of countermeasures and deepening the diplomatic standoff. The new laws mark a shift to a more assertive Philippine strategy, signaling Manila's refusal to yield ground. This legal push is both a defense of sovereignty and a stand for a rules-based international order. Central to the dispute is the 2016 Hague Tribunal ruling, which rejected China's sweeping claims and affirmed the Philippines' rights over Scarborough Shoal. Despite the ruling's binding nature under UNCLOS, China has dismissed it, continuing its operations as if the judgment never existed. The Philippines, in contrast, has embraced the decision, using it as the foundation for its new laws and diplomatic efforts. This legal divide, international law versus historical claims, fuels the ongoing conflict. Western democracies back the Philippines, but their calls for compliance have had little effect on Beijing's actions. China's defiance challenges not just the Philippines, but the entire global system of maritime governance. The dispute has spilled into open waters, with Chinese Coast Guard and militia vessels confronting Filipino boats, sometimes ramming or using water cannons. These incidents, especially near Scarborough and Second Thomas Shoal, risk accidental escalation into broader conflict. Other claimants like Vietnam and Malaysia watch with concern, wary of China's expanding reach. Analysts warn that Beijing's tactics could unite Southeast Asian states against it, complicating the regional balance. China's gray zone strategy uses non-military means to assert control, leaving the Philippines with tough choices: yield ground or risk escalation. International support is now more critical than ever for Manila. The United States, bound to the Philippines by a mutual defense treaty signed decades ago, has emerged as a central figure in the ongoing South China Sea standoff. This historic agreement obligates both nations to support each other in the event of external armed attack, making the U.S. a crucial security partner for Manila. Washington's support, spanning military aid, diplomatic backing, and legal assistance, provides Manila with significant leverage in its disputes with China. The presence of American forces and the promise of U.S. intervention act as a powerful deterrent, discouraging overt Chinese aggression and giving the Philippines a stronger negotiating position. Under President Marcos Jr., the Philippines has taken steps to deepen its military cooperation with the United States. This includes expanding the scope and frequency of joint military exercises, increasing American access to Philippine bases, and enhancing intelligence sharing. These moves signal Manila's intent to strengthen its alliance and modernize its defense capabilities. U.S. freedom of navigation operations, which involve sending warships through contested waters, serve as a visible counterweight to China's growing maritime power. These patrols reinforce international law and demonstrate America's commitment to keeping sea lanes open and resisting unilateral territorial claims. Yet, despite these assurances, questions persist about the long-term reliability of American support. Shifting U.S. political priorities, domestic debates, and changing administrations can all influence the level of commitment Washington is willing to provide, leaving allies like the Philippines uncertain about future backing. Any perceived hesitation or wavering from the U.S. could embolden Beijing, encouraging China to test the limits of American resolve and raising the stakes for Manila in this high-stakes maritime contest. The United States faces a delicate balancing act, deterring Chinese expansionism without provoking a direct military confrontation. Its strategy must carefully weigh the risks of escalation against the need to reassure allies and maintain regional stability. For the Philippines, this alliance is both a protective shield and a potential vulnerability. While it offers security guarantees, it also ties the nation's fate to the decisions of a distant superpower, making Manila's future in the South China Sea as uncertain as the shifting tides. Experts agree China's salami-slicing strategy aims to gradually make its control of disputed waters irreversible, avoiding outright war while wearing down resistance. Analysts urge the Philippines to build a broad coalition, leveraging new maritime laws as a legal foundation for international support. Manila must back diplomatic protests with credible actions at sea, maintaining consistency and resolve. China is expected to retaliate with more aggressive patrols and new administrative rules, risking a cycle of escalation. The challenge is to manage tensions without triggering open conflict, as both sides use different forms of power: military might versus international law and alliances. Internationalizing the dispute is key for Manila, framing it as a threat to global maritime freedom and rallying support against Chinese coercion. The Philippines-China standoff is reshaping Southeast Asia, prompting neighbors like Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei to reconsider their own strategies. Vietnam is publicizing Chinese harassment and strengthening its defenses, while Malaysia is becoming more vocal in its protests. ASEAN's unity is being tested as economic ties to China divide member states and weaken collective action. The Philippine example shows that resistance is possible, but it comes with risks and requires strong alliances. The crisis is forcing a regional reckoning band together for a rules-based order, or risk losing sovereignty to China's expanding influence. New security partnerships may emerge, reshaping the region's geopolitical landscape for years to come. The future of the South China Sea remains shrouded in uncertainty. as rising nationalism and deep-seated historical grievances continue to shape the actions of the countries involved. The region is a flashpoint where competing territorial claims and national pride collide on a daily basis. Great power rivalry, especially between the United States and China, is fueling the risk of conflict. Even a single miscalculation or misunderstanding at sea could have dire consequences, potentially triggering the U.S.-Philippines Defense Treaty and drawing in outside powers. What might begin as a local clash could quickly escalate into a much larger regional war, threatening peace and stability across Asia. At present, neither China nor the Philippines shows any real willingness to compromise or back down, and diplomatic efforts have so far failed to break the deadlock. This ongoing standoff sets the stage for prolonged tension and repeated confrontations, with each incident increasing the risk of a wider conflict. The dispute is a microcosm of the broader US-China competition for influence in the region, and the stakes are incredibly high. Global trade, the security of vital shipping lanes, and the stability of the entire region hang in the balance. Resolving this crisis will require extraordinary diplomacy, creative solutions, and a willingness from all parties to engage in meaningful dialogue. A renewed commitment to international law and multilateral cooperation is essential if peace is to be achieved. The central question remains: can diplomacy and a rules-based order ultimately prevail in the South China Sea? Or will power politics and military force decide the future of Asia's most contested waters? The answer to this question will shape not only the region, but the world for generations to come.